Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is Morgan Nagler. Her debut album, I've Got Nothing to Lose and I'm Losing It, is out now. Before we get into a brief discussion of the interview, that could be one of my favorite album titles of all time. I just love the play on words. It's a lyric, as you'll hear her say, it's a lyric from one of her songs. But I just love the play on words there. And so I just want to put that out there. This is her debut album, and she has co-written with many other artists, Phoebe Bridgers, Margot Price, Kim Deal, Haim, and many others. And this is her debut, just purely all of her own songs on this. I love this conversation. We talked a lot about exercise and the role of movement. Do talk about that a lot with songwriters, but I think we stress that a lot here. What types of movement she uses to get her in the best place to write. It is not Pilates, as you'll hear, but other types of movement, and whether it's driving, whether it's exercise, certainly that's a big part of her process. There's a lot of connections here. This album was co-produced by Kyle Thomas, King Tuff. I had him on the pod a couple of weeks ago. Other people on the album, Courtney Barnett, she's been on the pod. Bethany Cosentino's been on the pod. Meg Duffy. So a lot of those people. But I'd love this conversation. I'd love the album. It's fantastic. But anyway, give this a listen. Morgan Nagler's debut album out now. I've got Nothing to Lose and I'm Losing It. Here's my interview with Morgan Nagler. Well, listen, first of all, I love the new album. It's so good. So, and I just want to ask you this. I love the title. It's an amazing title, and it keeps on going over in my mind. So how did you think of the title? Like, was that something you were just, you know, contemplating, or did it just come to you? Because it's just a great play on words.
Well, yeah, it's a lyric in the song Another Mona Lisa. It's not the focus lyric, but it is in the song. And so it came from the song, which the beginning of that refrain is, I've got nothing to prove and I'm proving it, which I feel like is also just kind of, I don't know, I really came up in like an very indie underground DIY scene. And I've now moved to kind of the opposite of that, just in the way that I love like collaborating and stuff, where when I was younger, it was like, what? Like, I don't need help with, like, that's ridiculous. And so it's kind of just thoughts on that of just kind of, well, the first part was that I've got nothing to prove and I'm proving it, because it's like, clearly you care or you wouldn't be doing this at all. And yeah, and then that's what led to the I've got nothing to lose and I'm losing it, which truly I feel like fully encapsulates where I am in my life and how I've lived my life in every way, shape, and form. And I love that it's like kind of sad, but it's also funny. And it's also freedom.
Yeah. Well, it's a great play on words, but so why that line versus like any other line? I guess it's a great standalone title. I feel like it works well as a single line. Uh, what made you pick that line over something
I
else in the
it was
song?
it was actually I was kind of like when the album was finished, just ruminating on the title, and it was actually my manager who kind of pulled that line as one of our ideas, and I was just like, "Yep, that's it," because it's just like I said, it does feel like a very holistic and accurate representation of the vibe, because I think that, in general, the writing on the album is it really does acknowledge the realistic, uh, sad aspects of life, but I hope and I think that it does so with some levity and with some humor and with some acceptance of the yin and yang of life, and that you really can't have one without the other, and they inform each other. And I remember when I was younger just kind of being at one of my lowest points, maybe the lowest I had been at that stage of my life, and having this realization while I was down in the depths of it that, wow, if I can stretch this much further lower than I thought I was capable of, the equal and opposite has to be true. And that was a real pivotal moment for me. And so I guess, yeah, pulling it back to I've got nothing to lose and I'm losing it. It's like, and you can find that freedom in the depths of your lowest moment. You're like, oh wow, and I'm in no way, shape, or form in like a low moment right now. That's not what I mean to say. I just mean, yeah, this is life. Like, fuck it, basically.
Do you do any type of writing, like journal writing?
you know, my songwriting kind of does really serve as that. I've dabbled in kind of the artist way and like just, free writing and stuff like that, but it hasn't been a lifelong practice. I go in and out of kind of writing like in that way. But I tend to think of everything in the context of songwriting. So if I start that way, it kind of quickly moves into, yeah, I guess what I'm interested in mostly about words is that I find the English language to be somewhat insufficient, or any language, not just the English language, but just, we've got these words for things, but using the most obvious one, the word love. It's like, okay, I mean, the meaning of the word that's just the spectrum of what that can mean is just endless. And even when you're talking about it in a similar way, like romantic love, even that, it's completely, it can, the feeling that evokes can be completely different. And so how do we how do we get there? How can we try and convey a very specific version of the words that we have, and therefore writing in kind of a journal format is not as intriguing to me because it's kind of more plain language. I guess it doesn't have to be, but I'm interested in the most in unique ways to evoke a familiar thing.
So does songwriting then, is that always sufficient for you, or do you feel sometimes that is it difficult to express all those things in the word economy of a song, and something like a longer form might be more appropriate for that topic?
Um, yes, absolutely. And I actually have been starting to kind of write still short form, but more like essays, which is also intriguing and in a different way because yeah, you can really elaborate and go to different places that are hard to reach in just a song. But yeah, there's actually the song Ball and Chain is kind of about that on the record. It's like sometimes you can't find the words and it's like a prison and you just, I do struggle with that, of course. But yes, I nothing has ever made me feel more satisfied than writing a song that I like or that I feel like does its job.
I was interviewing someone yesterday, and I quoted William Zinsser, who wrote one of my favorite books on writing called On Writing Well. It's like there's really not many books on writing that you can read from cover to cover because I just think that they're kind of boring, but this is just he's it's a fantastic book, and he has a phrase, and he says that he has the line is, if a phrase comes to you too easily, don't use it because you've probably heard it before. It's probably a cliche.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think that's the challenge of it's easy to write those lines that you've heard before, but the challenge is how do you write something that no one's ever heard before
Yeah.
that sounds good and not cheesy, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I love, but I mean, I'd love to think that's all that that's an easy thing to do where every line I come up with is something that no one's ever heard that before. But that's
Yeah.
always stuck with me I mean, I don't write songs, I'm a prose writer, but
Yeah.
that's always stuck with me that when I see phrases like that, someone else has written, it's like, you could have done better than that. I mean, that's so easy. But I think that is the challenge of how do you write something that's so unique that no one's ever heard before.
Absolutely. And yeah, that comes back to kind of like getting back around to these very familiar emotions, but in unique and almost absurd ways. That's like that is the fun part. That's like where the joy is.
Do you think it's important to create every day, or are you okay with when things just aren't happening?
Um, I spent the first half of my life going with just totally going with the flow. And as far as letting it come when it comes and not worrying about it otherwise, I have a much more ritualistic practice now. Partly just because I also do co-writing with other artists, and that is, a fair amount of my week is spent that way. So I'm just kind of doing it all the time, but I do try and pick up the guitar every day just on my own as well. Um, and yeah, I think my good friend Brian Klugman always says, inspiration usually strikes when you're at your desk,
Oh, really?
which is like, it's the opposite of just letting it, but it's like, well, when it strikes, you'll be there ready to receive it instead of, so it's kind of like, yeah, if you're just in it and if you're always there when it does strike, it's just immediately alchemizing into something.
I will say, I've given a very broad generalization. That is, I've noticed that the people, for the most part, who've been around for the longest are the people who say you got to do it every day. I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't interview many people who are of a certain age who say, "Oh yeah, like I just wait
Fair.
for it." I mean, the people
Yeah.
have been around in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even. Those are the people that say, "Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to do something every day."
Yeah. And I mean, life is your collaborator, and so on that level, constantly, the voice notes and stuff like that. But yes, actually picking up the guitar and like seeing what comes out every day.
When you're out, is it difficult to not pay attention to all of the sounds and the sights and the things because those are obviously rich experiences to write about, but I can tell by the look on your face that the pain. So is it that you, because some songwriters tell me that when they go out it's almost distracting, it's like they can't help but notice everything. So where
Yeah.
do you stand in that?
Yeah, always on. Always on. Taking it in, noting. Yeah. People will be like, "What are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just very quietly talking to myself, but not realizing that I am to try and remember this phrase or whatever."
And do you just have thousands of voice memos?
Oh, so many. Yes.
So here's the record. I got a new record yesterday. I interviewed Sasha Spielberg,
Oh, she's a
who.
friend of mine. I love her.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So we had a great conversation, and up until that point, I think the record, I forgot who it was 4,000 voice memos. She showed me her phone, 13,000 voice memos from
Wow.
13,000, and she was
Wow.
not proud of it, but she has 13,000. So go back? How often do you go back to those? I mean, I have so many voice memos, but I don't go back to them as much as I'd like to. Do you often go
Yeah.
back to those?
Um, not probably as deep as I could, but I'm a little bit better now. not totally better at, like, labeling an idea quickly with something, and I will occasionally, because often I'll write at night, like, before bed, and then I just go to bed, and then I totally forget about it. So then at some point, I'll remember a word, or I'm like, "Oh, the title," and then I can search, and then sometimes it will come up. So I do reference it in that way, and I'm like, "Oh gosh, there's a whole song here that I wrote before I went to bed and, just completely forgot about by morning." And I use it a lot in co-writing sessions, and, because you just try and record as much as you can as you're going, because the ideas come and there's so many ideas at once, and then you wanna remember them, go back and search within the day. So it's a great tool that way. But yeah, I go back, but certainly not as deep as I could. But sometimes, on a rare occasion, you just kinda scroll, and I look for things that are titled, and then you know that that's at least, like, a comprehensive idea and not just one random line while you were walking through the museum or whatever.
I love also the filing systems that I hear. I hear that some songwriters use star systems, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. Other
Right.
use emojis. Others have like adverbs like good, very, very good. Uh, so now, if you're stuck, do you find yourself going back to some of those too?
Uh, no, not really. I usually just am kind of trying to draw from the moment. But sometimes I remember, like just the other day, I remembered that, yeah, in December when I was walking through the Louvre, that I had, and so I was like, "Okay, I know I can search, I know the dates-ish that I was there, and I can find that idea," and I did. Um, and I hadn't thought about it since that day in December. So it's definitely, I mean, it's by far the best tool that I use.
I was also telling someone this the other day. I had Mary Chapin Carpenter on the podcast, and
Incredible.
she said that back in the day before cell phones, I mean, I was live before cell phones,
Yeah,
that when they were on tour, they would call their answering machine uh, at their house. And that was the voice, that was primitive voice memo. They'd call their answering machines,
leaving them so.
come home back from tour, and there is 60 minutes or whatever of just nothing but those the answering machine messages. Uh,
Genius.
y-
Well, what's crazy is I remember writing songs, yeah, before smartphones, and you just had to play it 100 times so that you remembered it instantly, whereas now I don't, like I said, I wake up in the morning, I don't even remember I wrote a song, you know, which is crazy. But yes, you just had to keep playing it till it was memorized. That was your only, I mean, I I had, like, a little dictaphone, like a little
yeah.
that sometimes I would use, but for the most part, you just had to keep playing it. And I think what's interesting about that is, as you take songs out on the road and play them live, they evolve a bit, and they kind of settle, and their cadence settles. And I think we lose a lot of that in this kind of instant gratification world that we live in now. You're like, okay, there's a song I recorded, I have a version of it, it's done, instead of playing it 100 times and kind of letting it find itself before you play it live or record it or whatever it is.
So I want to ask you about the Louvre because Ernest Hemingway said all writers should go to art galleries to get inspired. And I do hear that quite often, that songwriters get inspiration from art galleries, whether it's a painting or the title.
Mhm.
So are art galleries a source of inspiration for your songs?
I love museums. I definitely don't go as much as I would like. Um, but yes, I was inspired by the Louvre, and I really also enjoyed going to, yeah, I mean, all 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 art, and I think that most artists, there's aspects of all art forms in us. And so it's great to be inspired by things that aren't, I don't really like being inspired by a song because you don't want to copy a song, you know? So I do look to other forms of art, whether it just be life happening or a painting on the wall, for inspiration.
But walk me through that, because I would love to explore how how visual art inspires a different medium. I can understand how a poem might inspire a song or a painting might
Mhm.
inspire a sculpture, even though I'm not a visual artist remotely. So when you're looking at a painting, is it an image? What is it about that that might inspire you to write in a different medium?
I think that it's, not so much like a direct correlation, like, "Oh, this color," but more art that's evocative, which hopefully it is if it's in the Louvre. Um, it just it opens a channel slash makes you think of something or some experience or being a kid or whatever it is, and I think that when you are focused on something else, you are able to kind of let other ideas come through you without filtering them. So this is kind of something that I think about a lot, which is this intuitive woman spoke about this once, and it always stuck with me, which is that taking a shower, going on a walk, looking at art in a museum, your brain is satisfied. It's occupied. It's like, okay, I'm taking a shower, I'm washing my hair. Um, and therefore you are open to other ideas coming through. Whereas normally I feel like our brains, our egos are so um they're meddling and they're filtering. They're like, no, what does that mean? And what do you know what I mean? It's like, no, just let the idea come through, but we get in our own way. And so I think that, taking a walk and taking a shower, driving, that that is when ideas come naturally, whether you know this or not. But I think that doing something else, like looking at art, you know, so it's a double because you're looking at art, so it's like something inspiring or evocative, and also your brain is satisfied focusing on that, and so you're able to kind of like let whatever might be wanting to come through you come through, whether that's from your unconscious or from the general unconscious or whatever it is. I don't know, but I know what it feels like when those ideas come through.
Well, I was going to ask you about this anyway, because this is the one quote. I have a couple quotes that I always give songwriters, and you hit the nail on the head. And that is Agatha Christie said the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. So the idea, and by the way, there was an article in the Washington Post last year related to this about why we
Mm,
get our best ideas in the shower. So
mm,
the thinking behind that is that when our brains are engaged in unconscious activities, that's when the eureka moments happen. We
yeah,
never get eureka moments when we sit down and say, let me have a eureka moment. So
no,
I've heard things from songwriters like folding laundry, doing the dishes, gardening, vacuuming, cleaning,
yeah,
any repetitive motion. I mean, I've got a David Byrne quote up here. David Byrne said, "A car is a good place to write lyrics. Driving occupies one part of the brain, freeing up the other." So
exactly.
that's the whole shower thing. Also, is that that's when the ideas happen. So it sounds like that's happening a lot with you. But is it? So I want to before we explore the walking, are there certain things, repetitive motions that you find to be more fruitful than others, aside from, like, physical activity?
Um, I haven't noticed that. For me, it's generally been, yeah, just when I'm doing something else and not thinking about it. And like I said, I think that has a lot to do with our brains and what the egoic part of our brains that are analyzing everything and analyzing our thought before we even can say it. Um, and getting away from that. And, in the past I've used grass for that because, you get a little bit high and you can't really, get in your own, you can't analyze the thought. It just comes out, you know?
I just have to say I've not heard the word grass referring to marijuana, and when you said grass, I was like, "I think she means marijuana," but I haven't heard grass since, like, my parents.
Well,
That was
I've got a
amazing.
song called "Grassoline," so I just have, like, fully
That's true.
gone back to the well, yeah,
That's
which is
true.
my parents too, grass.
I was like, she's not talking about like mowing grass. I think she's talking that's hilarious. I have not heard that in forever. Um, that's amazing. Uh, so walking then, I mean, I'm a big proponent of physical
Yeah.
movement
Yeah.
for just for regardless for even for just anxiety and stress. But
Full circle to the beginning of our conversation
yeah,
about
right,
walking. Yeah.
right. And so do you use so walking exercise is a part of my day, but do you use walking as an idea generator or like a break from the process or both?
Um, if I'm in a writing room and we're getting to a stuck place, then yeah, the go-to thing would be to go for a little walk. Um, for me, it kind of I like to walk anyway, just in like a mental health and also exercise sort of way. And it's more like I just notice that the ideas come then instead of intentionally doing it for the ideas. Yeah, because really, I feel like driving works equally well as far as just ideas, but walking has the added benefits of obviously.
Do you get ideas when you're doing Pilates, or is that too is there a certain point at which the intensity of the exercise minimizes the creative element?
I don't think I've had an idea in Pilates because yeah, it's you're just like, come on, arms, you got this. Um, but I do actually I wrote an entire song, a song called "Can't Stop Crying," which was on my last record under my band name Whispertown. On the elliptical machine, the whole thing, and it was almost like I was able to do the exercise because I was, and coming back to the, like, without the phone, so you have to keep repeating the beginning, you have to remember it.
Yeah, I don't know how people did it back then. I mean,
They used their brains.
and they probably didn't have treadmills back then either, so it's a little
Yeah.
different. Um, so when it comes to lyrics, are you a pen and paper person or a technology person?
I think symbolically, I would call myself a pen and paper person because I'm a Luddite, but I rely on the phone just because it's always there, and, especially doing, collaborative work, you share the note or the Google Doc and you can both work on it and it's just so efficient. I of course used to I'm 48 years old, so I used to do only pen and paper and that was the only option. But yeah, now it's just so easy and it's organized and it's all there. If it's on your phone, it's just always all with you. And that is valuable.
So yeah, if you're at your desk, you're not collaborating, it's just you have a pen and paper and you have a phone, you're still picking up the phone?
Yeah, because 'cause I'm not at my desk. I'm, like, on the floor or in my bed with the guitar, and I'm like, because 'cause I'm also using it to just press record as I'm writing, so I remember whatever is just coming out before it's even a thing. So, it's just right there, and it's just easier and, organized.
I haven't heard the floor in a while, and it's funny because there was a period where I was interviewing songwriters, and for whatever reason, and I don't think we could never come up with a reason why, but that what is it about the floor? I mean, I that that is so appealing to write on versus a chair or a desk because I have heard that a lot too.
Just thinking about it now, I think it's focused. There's nothing else to do on the floor.
Mm.
At the desk, there's other options, and you can kind of see the rest of your space and, "Oh, I should let me just do the dishes real quick," or whatever it is. But on the floor, you're kind of just down there. It's cozy. You're like, "This is what I'm doing, and I'm just right here on the floor sitting cross-legged."
So is that what you do? Is that your place you like to write from?
Um, Often and weirdly in writing rooms, I'm on the floor a lot more than when I'm by myself. I really like when I'm home, I like sitting in bed with the guitar, to be honest.
The floor thing, again, I don't think we ever came up with a satisfactory reason, whether it was some deeply primitive reason. I remember Britt Daniel told me that he still writes on the floor because when he started writing, he had no money, he had no couch. So, but now he clearly has a couch, but he still writes on the floor because that's the way he always
The
started.
space. Also, like, I have a couch, but it's small, and my chairs can be, depending on the chair, restricting if you have the guitar. If there's any armrests, it's just kind of like the floor. Yeah, the floor is also kind of it's a more imaginative space. You're not like, "I'm in a chair, I'm doing this." It's like you can change your position. It's a blank slate kind of.
That's the best answer I've gotten, I think.
I'll take it.
I love that. Are you a daytime person? Are you a right through the night type of person?
I'm a daytime person, but I'm not a morning person, so it's kind of interesting, but, yeah, I've never liked this I certainly, if I've had a drink or something, no, that's not for me. I like the daytime. I feel the clearest, the most open, the most productive, but I wanna sleep in too.
Yeah, so what daytime, like, roughly, what are the hours there?
I mean, I'd say I wake up at 8:30 or 9. Um, when I was younger, I would sleep in a lot more than that, but, and I wanna have the coffee first. I like to enjoy the coffee. I prefer about 45 minutes of coffee enjoyment, and then I'm ready.
I love it. I love the rituals. I'm fascinated by the rituals because I don't know, I think you gotta know those things. You gotta know, like, what I mean, I understand there's mystery behind it, but why not try to put yourself in the greatest position for success? I mean, I'm not saying we have to unlock the secrets, but if you know that 45 minutes of just solitude before you write, then that's what you should do, right?
And I think that speaks to my friend's quote of inspiration usually strikes when you're at your desk. It's like, set yourself up for success. Be there, show up, and then when it comes, you're ready. Cuz because timing is also a big part of life. So, if you've set up your life in a way where the timing is more likely to be right, then, you're setting yourself up for a better chance of success.
Do you think that natural light, do you like a good window? I find a good window, good natural light to be important.
I love a good window and natural light, and I absolutely hate all LED flashing, terrible lighting.
So, ideally, then, is there a room where you besides the bedroom with the guitar, is there another room where you think that
Yeah.
you're the most productive?
I live in one room. It's a gorgeous room. So that's the room. But yes, it's I live in Malibu Canyon. It's just inspiration city. It's gorgeous. I've got tall ceilings and natural light, and then it's like walk out the door on a gorgeous hike. It's right next to Malibu Creek State Park. There's a creek that goes through the property. And I find I mean, I'm very lucky and privileged to rent the guest house in my friend's amazing spot. And I find that nature for me is the number one inspiration. It just kind of puts you in a place of acceptance. I think, it's easier. And also, I noticed I lived in Echo Park for many years before I moved out there, and I didn't notice while I was living there. But once I moved, it became very apparent how much quote unquote noise is getting in your way all the time. If you just think about the volume of human beings, let alone the volume of cell phones and computers and television and just whatever those waves and frequencies are doing to you all the time without you really realizing it, became very apparent when I suddenly was in nature. And there is this quiet, it's a literal quiet and it's a metaphorical quiet that happens, and therefore you can hear your own thoughts.
I I agree 100%. I was happened to be in Arizona last week. Good timing. I was there for a conference when it was 106. It was
Oh
that
my
time when
gosh.
Phoenix was the earliest it's ever been over 100,
We're breaking
ever.
records here too, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm a big hiker, and so I brought my hiking gear, and I spent a couple days hiking, and I was able to find a spot where, you know, I like a 360-degree, I spun around, and there was no noise. Uh, Nothing, like, no
Yeah.
airplanes, no, and it was just pure bliss, but it's almost impossible to find those spaces now, but when you find them, it's like a soul cleansing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe every day I wake up and I'm like, "How is this my life?" Yeah, it's eye-opening in many ways, and I think it's so important. Obviously, not everyone can live that way, and I couldn't without the support of my friends. But, but we can seek it out, and we can go on hikes and all these things like you're saying, and I think that's so important.
When you have when you find that you're stuck, I'm not gonna call it writer's block, when you find that you're stuck, uh, any hacks that you kind of push through? Do you step away? Are there things that you do to kind of break through that barrier if you find that you're just in a rut?
I I've never, like, tripped out about it for myself. I've never had a moment where I'm like, "Oh, no, like, am I really blocked?" But I always say to other people, and I think that this is a great practice, if you feel, like you're trying to get this song or you just or you're not able to write a song, you actually have writer's quote unquote block. I always say, like, commit to writing 3 bad songs. 3 songs that you do not like and that you definitely won't use for anything. Just do that. You can do that, you know? And it's because I think it's all in your head. You just trip yourself out. And it's not true. It's like, again, another version of getting in your own way, which we all do to some extent. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's just comes back to that practice. Just keep. Oh, yeah, of course, there's a go for a walk or all that kind of stuff, or just let it go, or commit to not writing at all for a whole week and just see what happens because you probably are going to tomorrow.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.